Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to dive right in and meticulously reconstruct the absolutely alarming events of April 25th, 2026. Using direct source reporting, we are going to break down the timeline, the suspect, and the much broader security implications of yet another high-profile attack. Let's get into it.
Okay, so Senator Lindsey Graham's stark observation here really hits the nail on the head. He describes a stream of unprecedented threats, which perfectly frames what we're looking at today. What is traditionally this lighthearted night of humor and, socializing between the press and the presidency, well, that atmosphere was completely shattered. We're looking at a scenario that is unfortunately becoming disturbingly common in American politics.
Now, before we get into the timeline, here is the absolute bottom line you need to know right off the bat. Despite a chaotic shootout that injured a really brave federal officer, President Trump, the First Lady, Vice President J.D. Vance, and all the attendees are completely safe. And importantly, a suspect is in custody. This all went down at the Washington Hilton Hotel. The suspect actually exchanged gunfire with law enforcement, striking an officer in their bulletproof vest, before he was finally taken down and sent to a hospital for evaluation.
Section 1. Chaos at the dinner.
It's honestly terrifying how fast a totally normal evening can just flip. Look at how this unfolded. At 8 p.m., the President and First Lady were introduced. Everything's fine. By 8:15, the first course is being served, and the room is buzzing with normal dinner conversation. But then, 8:36 p.m., the reporting notes that a heavily armed man rushed a Secret Service checkpoint just outside the lower-level ballroom. Literally 1 minute later, at 8:37, loud booms echoed through the venue and absolute panic set in. The Secret Service had to immediately swarm the stage to evacuate the president and his team.
Just listen to this quote from eyewitness Chris Sheridan because it so perfectly captures that visceral panic as everyone was forced to shelter in place. Imagine being dressed to the nines, socializing over your salad course, and suddenly you are diving under your table. Sheridan notes they were down on the floor for 10 incredibly tense minutes, totally unsure of what was going on. Now, the gunfire actually stopped really quickly because the inner security perimeter engaged the threat right away. But for the people trapped inside that ballroom, that was 10 minutes of absolute terror.
Section 2. Who is the suspect?
So, authorities actually moved really quickly on this. They identified the lone suspect as 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen out of Torrance, California. And actually, the most critical detail here, get this, is that police believe he was a guest staying at the hotel, which seems to be exactly how he bypassed outer security for such a massive event. After his arrest, he wasn't actually shot, but he was stripped of his clothing just to make absolutely sure he wasn't hiding explosives, and then transported to a local hospital for evaluation.
3. That is the number of distinct weapon types this guy had on him when he rushed that checkpoint. He was heavily armed with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives. So we're not talking about some spur-of-the-moment disruption here. The sheer arsenal he brought with him clearly indicates a massive, massive level of preparation.
And well, because of that intense preparation, he is facing some incredibly severe consequences. U.S. Attorney Janine Ferris confirmed he's looking at heavy federal charges. We're talking 2 counts for using a firearm during a crime of violence and 1 count for assault on a federal officer using a dangerous weapon. She made it very clear that, based on what they know so far, his intent was to do maximum damage. His arraignment is already set for Monday in federal court, and honestly, authorities are expecting even more charges to drop as the investigation continues.
Section 3. The security response.
Right, so this brings us to a huge question raised by all the sources. How did an armed man get so close to the president in the first place? It's really a tale of 2 perimeters. On one hand, you have the Secret Service checkpoint, the inner ring, and they did exactly what they were trained to do. They stopped the suspect in his tracks, saved countless lives, and prevented what could have been a massacre inside that ballroom. But on the flip side, there are serious, glaring questions about the hotel's outer perimeter. Because the ballroom is on the lower level, that's where all the heavy, airport-style security was concentrated. But to get into the building itself, apparently all you needed was a standard room booking or a ticket.
Now, looking impartially at the political reaction to all this, we're actually seeing something pretty rare these days: complete across-the-board unity. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Democratic Representative Nancy Pelosi all expressed this unified sense of relief. They all condemn the violence and offer deep, genuine gratitude for law enforcement's super swift action. Pelosi even specifically commended the brave men and women of the Secret Service for securing the scene, which carries a lot of weight given the trauma of political violence her own family has endured.
Section 4. History of political violence.
Okay, to really understand why this event is so significant, we have to look at the history. And this part is genuinely eerie.
The Washington Hilton is historically known as the Reagan Hotel. Why? Because it is the exact same hotel where John Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan way back in 1981. The historical echoes of a president being rushed away from gunfire at this exact location, they're just impossible to ignore.
And when you lay it all out like this on a timeline, a really frightening picture starts to emerge. Over just a 2-year span, we have seen a continuous, escalating string of assassination attempts against Donald Trump. Just look at it. July 2024, a gunman on a roof at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, wounds his ear. September 2024, an armed man is caught near his golf course in West Palm Beach. Fast forward to February 2026, an armed man is shot dead on the property at Mar-a-Lago. And now, April 2026, a shootout at the Washington Hilton. On their own, each event is a localized security breach, but stacked together like puzzle pieces, they represent a systemic, truly unprecedented security crisis.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, it leaves us with a massive question. As this political violence continues to escalate, how is the very fabric of American political events and presidential security going to have to change? Permanently. I mean, if a highly guarded event like the White House Correspondents' Dinner can be breached by a guy who just booked a hotel room, how in the world do we secure the dozens of rallies and speeches happening every single month? The Secret Service absolutely saved lives tonight, but the outer perimeters of our political life? They seem more vulnerable than ever. Let that question sit with you as you watch the news unfold in the coming weeks. Thanks so much for learning with me today.